Good evening, everyone. My name is Carrie, and I am reporting from coastal North Carolina on Friday, November 22nd, 2024. Tonight, we're going to be discussing a case that hits close to home. However, it occurred in Frederick, Colorado in 2018. The case I'm talking about is the Chris Watts murders. Criminology experts note that preventing or reducing crime depends on the knowledge of the reasons people commit the crime, or at the very least, the establishment of the causes of crime. Various theoretical dispositions have emerged with different schools of thought seeking to explain the reasons of crime in civilized human society. Multiple theories have been fronted to explain crime's prevalence. Two stand out here tonight: the general strain theory and the rational choice theory. Their involvement in a criminal undertaking isn't mutually exclusive. It is normal to realize that many crimes are committed on the back of the integration of those two theories. Concerning establishing criminal behavior, the research here explores the story of Chris Watts and the events that led up to him killing his entire family, his wife, Shanann, who was pregnant with a little boy, and their daughters, Bella, 4, and Celeste, 3. The role of Chris Watts' social environment and his psychological composition determines his actions, and therefore, incorporating the two theories in the research process is important to establishing his criminal behavior. Now let's look into his case a little bit more. What happened on that night? The story of Chris Watts' crime began sometime in the early summer months of 2018, but climaxed on the evening of August 13, 2018, when Chris Watts, around 2 a.m., cold-bloodedly murdered his wife and his daughters. He murdered all three and then dumped them at a work site. The murder, according to reputable resources, was motivated by his fading feelings for his wife, a relationship that he had started outside of the marriage with his mistress, and a conflict over the trajectory of their marriage served to complicate matters and infuriate him. Investigations and accounts of confession from Chris indicate that Shanann, his wife, had seen a growing rift in their marriage and possibly sought to confront Chris over that matter when she came home. During the conversation, Chris told her that he wanted a divorce, and in the heat of the moment, she told him he would never see his girls again. The statement infuriated Chris so badly that he strangled her. He had not planned for this murder at that time, let alone disposing of his wife's body. He startled one of his daughters, Bella, who walked in and found him dragging her mommy across the floor. Her naivety of a 4-year-old played into his hands when he convinced her that her mommy was sick and they needed to go to the hospital. He loaded up the girls and his dead wife and drove away. Unfortunately for Bella and Celeste, their father drove them to the oil site, smothered them, shoved them into individual oil barrels, and dug their mom a shallow grave nearby. Various reasons influence criminal behavior, and the factors that push someone from committing crimes could be referred to in some cases, and the variables of criminal behavior. An analysis of the social and personal factors in general as influences of crime could establish the specific factors that drove Chris Watts to do what he did in the summer of 2018. Family, education, economy, community, and peers are the 5 social variables for criminal behavior. However, personal variables for criminal behavior constitute alcohol, low self-esteem, drug use, and the parental neglect as the causative agents for criminal behavior. Unfortunately, each of the personal and social variables listed here do not reflect any of the reality of Chris's life before the murder. It was completely contradictory and different from any of the situations that could motivate an individual to murder. There's nothing from his background to suggest parental neglect or abuse as a child, though he didn't have the best relationship with his mother, but he was very close with his father. And his economic and educational backgrounds were normal. Economically, the Watts did have some financial trouble in the past, but he had a stable job from which he did not show any signs of hating or having emotional problems with work. Socially, he had a presumably happy family and had a little boy on the way, along with his two others, who, from evidence, loved him dearly. Therefore, the only viable explanation for the murder was that he wanted something he couldn't have with the family he already had. The motivation for the murder had roots in fear of losing out on the life that he wanted to live and the love that he wanted to experience with his mistress, and for a moment, one brief moment, his wife appeared to be that only barrier, and so he killed her. Unfortunately, Bella almost caught him, and he couldn't take that chance, so he killed Bella and her sister also. Chris had realized that his family had to give way for the new life he wanted and was seeking with his mistress. That situation cannot be explained by a single theory defining criminal behavior. Instead, it indicates an integration of two theories, especially since Chris Watts is not a criminal made by circumstance or situation, and yet he isn't exclusively a criminal of rational choice either. Logically, his actions lie in the middle. Chris Watts had been established from the content above is no ordinary criminal. Despite committing one of the most heinous acts of 2018 by killing his family, his profile doesn't match the average family killer since his background contradicts the crime. He certainly doesn't possess a narcissistic gene unless he has well hidden it. Therefore, dissecting his criminal behavior could feel like solving a mystery, for it is the only explanation for his crime. For starters, he manages to kill his pregnant wife and two daughters without necessarily exhibiting signs of violence in the past. There were no domestic orders in place. He had not been looked into for domestic violence. Shanann had nothing through the police for any domestic violence. The murder itself was an unmediated act. The fact that he is unable to properly dispose of the bottles, leading to Bella walking in on him, indicates his actions were impulsive in nature. It is his actions after Shanann's murder that indicate that Chris is capable of committing the crime despite the absence of social and personal factors that point to that level of darkness in him. In the moments after Shanann's murder, Chris can kill his two daughters as a way of covering up the first crime and gathers enough composure to effectively lie about the incident and mislead the investigation. Up to this point, one could note that Chris's impulsive action led to the commission of the crime, and therefore it is a situational crime brought on by circumstance. However, his decision to kill Bella and Celeste was a rational choice. Bury all the bodies in his oil site and lie about them for 2 days. The actions following the murder are as criminal as the murder itself. Therefore, his decision to execute them nonetheless points to a rational decision which, to a certain extent, defines his criminal behavior as an act of active choice based on his desire to build a new life with himself and his mistress. It has little to do with the circumstances surrounding him, his upbringing, or his psychological composition. Theoretically, Chris Watts' crime results from both rational choice theory and the general strain theory. Admittedly, he lacked happiness with his wife and had found love somewhere else. In seeking a solution to the situation, he had decided to ask his wife for a divorce and settle down with his mistress. However, Shanann had other plans, and in this case, they were depriving him of the right to spend his time with his children. While impulsive rage may have been the final nail to push him over, the general strain holds that the loss of valued possessions, meaning his children, warrants a murderous reaction. The push to kill Shanann may have been influenced by the rage stemming from his fear of losing his children, but killing Bella and Celeste, however, didn't stem from his fear of losing valued possessions, negative treatment, or the inability to obtain success.